Hey guys, my name is Loveless and we are back with Quirk Knife. Okay, so before I start reading the chapter, we've gotten so far, all the way down to chapter 24. Who would have thunk it? But I'm gonna keep going all the way until chapter 80 because I don't want to half-ass something and didn't complete it. That would be rude. Also, I am astounded with how many people have subscribed already. Thank you. And it makes me very happy to see the number keep going up. I didn't think that we would get past 100. So going to 125, I'm like, hey. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Hi. Shota nearly dropped the documents and papers he was holding, completely stiffening from the sudden noise. He spun around towards the window, the greenette trying to adjust his hold on the windowsill to get more comfortable. What? Shota breathed, turning to look at the clock. It was 7. Shit. He cursed, Dobby joining Izuku's side with an annoyed grunt and heavy breathing, resting his chin on his fingers. Where are we? Shota did yet another double take, the high-pitched feminine voice throwing him off guard, and this time he really did drop all his papers to the ground, startling Mika. He didn't have the time to clean up. Hazashi wouldn't be home from grocery shopping, and Izuku was currently wearing a confused expression, probably wondering why there was no meal, although he'll never ask. Shota didn't know how to cook. He barely ate any actual food, unless it was stuffed down his throat by Nemori or Hazashi. He turned back to where Izuku had reached in to scratch the top of Mika's head, the white kitten purring in content. Chaos? Where are we? A girl asked as she finally came into view. She couldn't have been much older than the first-year students of UA. This is Eraserhead's and President Mike's apartment. They make sure Dobby and I eat, Izuku said with pride in his tone. Was he proud of himself and Hazashi? But you can't tell anyone, he continued in a serious voice. No one knows they're married, and don't, give away their address. The girl nodded with eager eyes. I won't, I promise. I can do that. While Izuku bursted into a one-sided conversation about the two pro-heroes, Shota was still internally panicking while looking at Dobby. Dude, don't stress yourself out, the man spoke. Is the food not ready yet? There's no rush. Izuku's eyes went wide and his face flushed red. Oh my, am I early? I'm sorry, Shota. I didn't mean to be early. I'll go. Izuku. Shota comforted softly, the use of his first name throwing him off ever so slightly. You're not early, and it would be fine if you were. I lost track of time, and Hazashi isn't home, and... You don't know how to cook, do you? Dobby snickered. Shota blinked slowly and ran a hand through his knotted hair. No, I don't. It was silent for a moment. But when Dobby's stomach growled loudly, it seemed it was enough for Izuku to make a decision, tumbling through the front window with the girl quickly on his tail, without hesitation. I know how to cook, the small boy mumbled quietly, almost as if he was nervous. Was he nervous? Why? The girl blinked and smiled. I don't know how to cook, but I'm Himiko Toga. Hi. Shota chewed on his tongue slightly, trying to figure out what question he should ask first. And Chaos, is that your name, Izuku? Oh shit, Izuku had his mask on, meaning... The greenette squeaked while Dobby visibly cringed, Shota's face heating up in an embarrassed flush. The boy sighed. Yes. Izuku, that name is adorable, Toga giggled. It matches your adorable little cheeks and freckles. Would you stop that? I told you, I'm not into you like that, Izuku cried, ripping off his mask and tossing it towards the couch. The girl laughed harder. I know that, Izuku. Doesn't mean that you're any less adorable. Besides, you're not really my type either. Then why do you keep saying things like that? Like what? Toga asked, appearing genuinely confused. Dobby slunked into the apartment last and headed straight for the couch, kicking Izuku's discarded mask to the side and flopping face down on the pillows with a contented sigh. Whatever. The small boy waved his hands dismissively. Do you have some food around here? Shota tapped his chin, because the simple answer was no. That's why Hisashi wasn't home. He stared stupidly. Help yourself. Izuku smiled and walked up to the cabinets in the kitchen and paused, a steady frown settling on his face. Shota quietly walked in. What's wrong? Why are your cabinets so fucking high? Izuku shouted with a pout, placing his hands on his hips. Pipe down, short stack, Dobby groaned from the couch, curling up as Mika kept sniffing him. Ashtray. Izuku shot back, and Dobby slammed his hands down on his own thighs. I quit! You can't keep using that fucking insult. That's cheating! Izuku ignored him and kicked his shoes off, climbing on top of the counter while Toga watched with ready eyes, her arms outstretched in case he wiped out. Shota's eyes glanced down to the counter of Pink, scooping the Hello Kitty sneakers. Why did Izuku have Hello Kitty sneakers? I can feel the judgment radiating off of you, Izuku sneered. Can I not like Hello Kitty? Huh? Is there a problem with that? Shota shook his head immediately. No, I'm just going to place these by the windowsill. He did as he explained and settled at the kitchen table, filling out the paperwork he was supposed to complete last week. He made sure to keep an eye on the two teenagers in the kitchen, Toga mainly grabbing ingredients for Izuku and watching him pour things into a pot and cut vegetables. Snoring from the living room notified him that Dobby was tapped out, his legs hanging over the top of the pillow and his arms stretched all over the place. Funny enough, it seems Mika has claimed this new visitor sleeping in a ball on his chest, purring up a storm. Shota couldn't help wonder but why this felt oddly calm, despite not enjoying the company of kids when it wasn't necessary. He and Hisashi already decided children weren't for them. They knew that ever since high school, even before they officially got together in their third years. So, why did this feel so comfortable, so familiar? Yet, while Toga yelled at Izuku to add more chili flakes, Shota's heartbeat was steady and he felt fondness while watching them. Was there something wrong with him? Maybe he had caught a cold or something. Toga? He asked. How old are you? Izuku shooed her from the kitchen, and Toga skipped over, smoothing out her skirt before crossing her legs in the seat opposing Shota. Why? Just asking. Well, I'm 16, she smiled, but I don't know why that really is important. Shota hummed and scribbled a few signatures on his document. Do your parents know where you are? No. Oh, do you want to call them? What? No. They don't care where I am. They kicked me out a few months back. So they're not my parents anymore, Toga explained as she ran her fingers along the nicks and bumps of the table. Shota frowned. So who do you live with then? With me. Izuku spoke up right away, Toga's eyes lighting up. I do? Izuku stopped stirring the food on the stove for a minute and looked over. Do you live somewhere else? No. Then you live with me now. You know my name now. Not much to hide anymore. Toga's smile was the widest it's ever been, and Shota could have sworn her tears were building up in her yellow eyes. Well, there you have it, Mr. Eraser. I live with Izuku. Shota doesn't know where Izuku lives in the first place, but at least now he knows it's somewhere. He sighed and stood up. All right, do you want to watch the TV while Izuku makes dinner? Toga nodded right away and ran back to the window, gently placing her black shoes next to Izuku's, and then made her way over to the living room, weaving through Dobby's legs and taking up the end of the couch. Shota sat down in his favorite sofa chair and turned on the television, shifting the papers on his lap. Here, he mumbled, and tossed the comforter to Toga, the girl catching it with ease, beginning her search through the channels, her eyes wide in concentration. Shota focused on the sound of Zuko humming in the kitchen, and shut out the sound of Dobby snoring. Continuing his work through all the files Nezu had given him, just because Shota expelled all of his first years doesn't mean he has more time to do busy work. And hey, maybe he wasn't teaching anymore, but he had more pressing things to attend to, such as napping and petting Mika. That took a lot of energy. The lock at the front door jiggled, and Shota's head snapped up. Toga, too concentrated with the cartoon she was watching to notice. The door opened, and Hazashi said far too loudly, "Sho, I'm home. Did you cook something? I swear, if the kitchen is on fire again." Shota rolled his eyes and stood up, peering around the corner with a lazy wave. "We have guests." Hazashi frowned. "You actually let people around you? Like, voluntarily?" "Yes," Shota hissed in slight offense. "The kids got here, and I don't know how to cook, so Zuko's handling it." The blonde dropped his grocery bags by the door and flung his sunglasses off. "The kids are here? I can't believe I forgot. Zuko, I'm so sorry." Shota followed his dramatic husband into the kitchen, where the greenette was pouring some type of broth into 5 bowls. "Hazashi, just in time. Can you get the chopsticks for me? Also, a fork." Dobby's having trouble keeping his hands steady, and he gets pissed off when the noodles slip from his chopsticks. Neither of the men asked any questions, doing as told and sorting out the utensils along with drinks. "Toga," Shota called. "Wake Dobby up." There was a brief moment of silence, where he thought she might have not heard him, but then there was a very hard slap proving the theory wrong. "What the hell?" Dobby roared. "Did you just fucking slap me?" Yeah. Aizawa asked me to wake you up." "So why didn't you just, I don't know, tap my shoulder or something normal?" "That's how my parents used to wake me up." "What do you mean? Did I do something wrong?" Hazashi looked over to Shota with wide eyes, and yeah, that sentence had so many problems he would have to unpack later. Dobby exhaled slowly. "What?" "Come get your food. I'm not a maid," Izuku interrupted, picking up his own bowl as everyone followed. Dobby with a red hand print across his left cheek, some blood peering out of the cracks in his skin along his jaw. Shota wondered where those burns came from. He seen Dobby use his blue flames once or twice on patrol, but surely one's quirk couldn't be so self-destructive, right? As a child, his parents should have found a solution instead of letting their child burn themselves. It only makes sense. Shota didn't notice the way the 3 kids were standing there awkwardly, bowls cupped between their hands with their eyes on him. "What?" Hazashi elbowed him in the side with a scolding look. "They're obviously not sure where they're supposed to eat. Be nice. Come on, we can eat in the living room." Hazashi took the lead while the 3 followed him like baby ducklings, Mika at the tail end. Shota noticed her white fur was tinted with soot on the side. Dobby really needed a bath. Dobby and Toga took their original seats, Izuku squishing himself really close to Dobby's other side, despite there being more room on the couch. The grumpy man didn't seem to mind. Strangely enough, Hazashi sat down on the ground and placed his bowls on the table while Shota hesitantly returned to his sofa chair. "Thank you, Izuku," Hazashi said with a huge smile, Toga and Dobby doing the same. "Yeah," Shota sighed with a soft smile. "Thank you. It looks really good." Izuku's cheeks tinted pink and he bowed his head in embarrassment. "It's just some beef broth and delicious." Dobby leaned in with his shoulder. "And something the rest of us wouldn't been able to fucking do." The room fell into a comfortable silence as Toga went to the next episode. Hazashi suddenly taking a double take. "Wait a minute. I don't remember collecting a blonde." The girl lowered her bowl and flashed a shiny smile. "Hi, I'm Himiko Toga." Izuku sounded very hyper and excited over the phone, and that only meant one thing. He'd done something. Have you been sleeping lately? May poked the side of Hitoshi's face, pulling himself out of his thoughts. He couldn't help but laugh at the innocent question. Have you been sleeping? Have I been sleeping? No, of course not. Wrinkles from May's frown etched her face, and she shook her head. Very funny, Insomniac. But, I mean, you look worse than normal. Thanks. Hitoshi hasn't told anyone about Kayabu, but he was up late last night calling the hospital. When he got up for some water, he found the quiet librarian unconscious on the floor, her pulse unstable and faded. Hitoshi knew that she's been extremely sick, but he thought he had more time with her. Now she still hasn't woken up, and it's been hours. Just stressed about school is all, he finally answered, and that wasn't a complete lie. Aw, Toshi, May squealed as she hugged his arm. Don't be. You're going to do great. I promise. You need to be more confident in yourself. Hitoshi nodded weakly as they arrived at the warehouse doors, banging loudly when they found it was locked, as usual. Coming! Izuku shouted from inside, the sound of him running becoming louder. What do you think he did this time? Hitoshi whispered down to May. She casually shrugged and rolled her shoulders. Probably killed a guy. Luckily, I've been trained for this moment my whole life. Hitoshi choked on nothing but air. What the fuck does that mean? I've never done it, but getting rid of a body can't be that hard. Hey, Izuku. The greenette jumped up and down with messy hair. Hey, guys, what are you talking about? Nothing. Hitoshi and May gasped at the same time, then chuckled nervously. Izuku's bouncing ceased and he thinned his eyes, examining his two friends. Hitoshi felt like that glare really could kill a man. Well, okay. Come in. Come on. Izuku bounced back into his usual demeanor and grabbed Hitoshi and May's wrist, pulling them in. Hitoshi opened his mouth to ask why his little friend was all over the place today when his eyes settled on two people playing card games in the middle of the warehouse, one which he did not recognize. Her yellow eyes snapped up and she jumped to her feet, waving excitedly. Hi, are you the rest of the Vigilante Action Squad? Oh, why do you keep calling it that? Dobby deadpanned, tossing the cards in his hand to the ground. Where do you keep finding all these people? Hitoshi mumbled quietly, running a hand down his face. Another girl? May yelled. Cool. I'm Mei Hatsumi. Call me May. I'm Himiko Toga. Toga looked over to the purple-haired boy and raised a hand in a lazy wave. Hitoshi Shinso. Izuku looked between everyone as silence washed over the group, no one wanting to start the conversation again. I like knives, Toga blurted in nervousness. I mean, that's how I met Izuku. We started talking about knives. She also... Izuku itched the top of his head and rocked on his heels. She lives here now. Yay, right? Toga nodded and threw her hands up. Yeah, yay! Dobby crossed his arms. You know, this is not the same treatment I got when I joined this little fucking group. Hitoshi couldn't help the snort that escaped. Yeah, because Toga's not a dirty 22-year-old that commits arson and showers only once a year. Maybe not arson, but she does stab people. That gotta count for something. The four young teenagers shrugged at once and decided to ignore Dobby. Toga continuing, I'm gonna be a vigilante with Izuku and Dobby. Isn't that cool? Izuku huffed with a small smile. Toga, May is our tech behind the scenes, and Hitoshi, I make sure you morons don't fucking die. Hitoshi interrupted. That's my job in this little bullshit group. Izuku laughed. Yeah, Toshi wanted to, well, at least consider being a vigilante, but he goes to a hero school. Same thing for May. Well, they haven't actually started, but your first day is in 2 weeks, right? Hitoshi and Mei nodded. So, you make Izuku's little gadgets and stuff? Toga asked a little nervously, watching for Mei's reaction. The pink-haired girl nodded. Yep, me and my babies can make anyone top dog. Trust me. The blonde was oddly quiet for a moment, and Izuku tilted his head. Did you lose your voice or something? You're never actually quiet. Toga giggled, although lacking its usual energy, and slowly pointed to her teeth. My quirk. I need to consume blood. I know it's a villainous quirk and weird, and my quirk's brainwashing. People used to call me a villain every day, Hitoshi spoke. So let me give you a tip. No quirk is villainous. It's what you make of it. You should get that mindset now because either way, Izuku's gonna beat it into you. Izuku looked surprised as she continued. Oh, right. Well, biting people is kind of difficult. They dodge. Not to mention unsanitary. Blah. I don't want to bite random people, you know? So is there like a machine you can have that will get the blood for me? Maybe even store it? I don't really know. May's crosshair eyes were sparkling as she screamed, Yes, yes, and yes, I can do that. Tell me everything about your quirk. Literally everything. Izuku pulled out his notebook. Wait, I want to write it down too. What happens when you actually consume blood? Toga chewed on her lip lightly. Hitoshi could tell she was anxious. Depending on how much I drink, I can turn into them. Holy shit, no fucking way, Izuku screamed. What about voices? Quirks? Clothing? Can you even change height? I have so many questions. Hitoshi watched the poor new girl practically get tackled to the ground as Mei pried open her mouth, poking around her sharp canines until she pricked herself. Change into me, she shrieked without a question. Toga's form morphed into a slimy substance, her blonde hair turning to pink. I didn't take my clothes off first, so... Toga chuckled awkwardly as Mei's clothes copied over her original ones, making them look lumpy and oddly shaped. Mei stared at the fake Mei with wide eyes. This is so cool. Oh my god. Let's take a selfie right now. No, wait, Izuku, take a picture of us. Hitoshi continued to watch from a distance, laughing as Izuku, Toga, and Mei began to chase Dabi with knives, wanting to sample his blood. I can make you some sort of machine, Mei shouted as she began babbling into her recorder, pacing back and forward, even as the screaming in the background would make it difficult to hear her own playback. Hitoshi found himself smiling for some reason. How has he found himself with such a strange group? Dabi was spewing flames from his palms as he was pinned down by Izuku's tiny form, Toga helping herself to his exposed ankles without any burns. Mei completely ignored the chaos behind her as she began screaming into her recorder with excitement, flipping off Hitoshi when he started laughing at her. Dabi then set one of Izuku's blankets on fire, and Toga transformed into Dabi, scolding the actual man for committing arson. The greenette shouted, Bad Dabi, over and over again. At least the man had the decency to look guilty. I'm so sorry, my little son, Toga apologized as Dabi, only making the man angrier. Two Dabis were now running around the warehouse as Izuku and Mei tried to smother the fire in the middle of panic with some cans of juice they laid around, despite there being a fire extinguisher 2 feet away from them along the wall. Hitoshi thought back to his parents, the way they used to muzzle him and lock him into his room after he accidentally used his quirk for the first time. Hitoshi, baby, what would you like for dinner? Hitoshi looked up from the paper he was scribbling on with his yellow crayon. He was drawing the sun. Dinner? He repeated, his legs swinging back and forward. I want ice cream. The lilac woman chuckled. Hitoshi, no, you don't get ice cream. It's not good for you. He knew that his mom and dad never let him have any sugar. They could barely get him to sleep as it is. They didn't want to risk sugar making it more difficult. But I want ice cream. Hitoshi shouting, tossing his yellow crayon at the television and standing up with his fist on his hips. All my other friends get to eat ice cream. Hitoshi, his mom warned, her playful demeanor gone. You're not allowed to eat ice cream. You know that. Don't test me. Frustration was building in Hitoshi's gut because no, he didn't know that. He knew the rule existed, but he didn't understand why the rule was in place. All he knew is that it wasn't fair. Mommy, why can't I get ice cream? Hitoshi felt a strange pressure build in his eyes as his mother opened her mouth to answer. Because I said so. Mommy, let's go get ice cream. She felt silent for the first time in a long time, and Hitoshi watched as she walked to the door and opened it without even stopping to put on her shoes. Hun? His dad jumped up from the couch. What are you doing? Are we gonna get ice cream? Hitoshi turned to his father, who in return frowned. No, your mother already said. Let's go, Daddy. We're gonna go get ice cream for dinner. As his dad's blue eyes faded to an off-white, Hitoshi followed his parents out the door, ignoring the building headache in his mind. Neither parents putting on their shoes, so Shinso didn't either, walking behind them down the street. Usually they drove to the ice cream shop. That was strange. Mommy? He asked, but she didn't answer, instead continuing her route, his father doing the same. At the time, Hitoshi didn't think much of it, struggling to keep up as he chased after their long strides. 15 minutes later, the Hitoshi family returned to their home, and Hitoshi crawled onto the couch with a massive tub of cookie dough ice cream, sticking his spoon in excitement. Brain freeze! He giggled, clutching his head as his parents sat blankly on their chairs, but the silence was gone in a blink of an eye. Hitoshi Shinso! His mother shouted. Where did you get that ice cream? He blinked in confusion. What? You took me with Daddy. We most certainly did not. Don't put words in our mouths. His father cried back, standing up in a threatening way. Being threatening was pretty easy when you're 6'5". But you really did. We just got back, remember? No shoes either. His mom looked at the receipt on the table as Hitoshi continued. Can I have some of the chocolate? Her eyes snapped open. No, you cannot. Give me the chocolate. The woman was silent again as she reached into the bag and handed the second tub to Hitoshi, causing him to squirm in happiness as his father watched horrified. Hun, he shouted, it's his Quirk. He didn't get either of ours. His mother was shaken back to normal. His Quirk makes us... He can control us? Like puppets? Hitoshi couldn't have prepared himself for what would come next. No child could. His parents refused to talk to him for a week, much to his confusion, until one day his father came home with a strange metallic contraption. He held Hitoshi down as his mother strapped a muzzle around his face. No matter how much he screamed and cried and fought back, it was never enough. Barely 3 months later, his mother told him they were going to get ice cream. She left him in a strange building and never came back, only leaving him with a letter. Hitoshi never got to find out what the letter said, but he did know none of the strangers in the new building would talk to him, and they wouldn't remove his muzzle. Even after 10 years later, from that day, Hitoshi still got the small faded scars imprinted on the bridge of his nose and his cheekbones, and there was a chunk missing from his upper left ear. Hitoshi knew from that age of 3 that he would never be wanted. At least, that's what he used to think. Because here with these strange, odd, crazy, beautiful, wonderful beings, Hitoshi now knows that life is more than your past. Here with the kid he met in the library while he was researching knives, he turned out to be the most protective. Here with the kid whose lab they snuck into, she turned out to be the most accepting. Here with the man who tried to burn them at first sight, he turned out to be the most encouraging. Here with the kid who he just met, She's already excited to be his friend. Yeah, that's how she thought. This is where he belongs. He belongs with family. Oh my god, my heart. My heart. Oh my god, I had shivers. Oh my god, my heart. Uh, oh my god. Okay. So yeah, I'm loving this, but also I'm like, I want to give Toshi a hug. He deserves a hug. Going through all that stuff and having the scars of it, just. Okay. But yeah, this was awesome. It was kind of long. I'm like expecting it to be in sets of 3, so I can like break it down in 3 parts. But no, it's broken down into 2, which makes it extremely long. But I got it done. By the end of the day, I got it done. So, if you want to see more of this in my voice acting, which I ain't even real voice acting because I don't use voices, you know what to do.